Right now, somewhere in the world, a stranger is thinking about you. Maybe they sent you a text. Maybe they were about to call your name. Maybe a song on the radio triggered a memory whose shape loosely matched your face. That small shiver you sometimes feel, the moment a thought arrives you can't quite explain, is one of the oldest feelings your species has ever had. But here's the strange part. The shiver isn't proof that the universe is reaching out. It's proof that your brain is hiding something from you. And once you see it, you will never experience a coincidence the same way again. In the early 1970s, a struggling actor named Anthony Hopkins spent an entire day trudging through the streets of London. He was searching for a book, The Girl from Petrovka, a novel so obscure that nearly every copy in circulation was locked inside university libraries in Vienna. Hopkins wandered from bookshop to bookshop, asking, searching, coming up empty. Then, on the evening commute home through a busy tube station, he stopped to sit down on a bench. Beside him was a paperback copy of the book he had spent all day failing to find. Handwritten notes in the margins. He took it home. Years later, on the set of the film he had been searching that book for in the first place, Hopkins met the original author, George Pfeiffer. And Pfeiffer told him the story of what had happened before Hopkins ever sat down. The book on the bench was Pfeiffer's own personal copy, lost months earlier near that exact station. In a city of 9 million people, in the labyrinth of London's used bookshops, two men carrying the same rare object crossed paths by sitting on the same bench at the same station on the same evening. Do you believe it happened? Now consider a coincidence history has refused to let go of. In 1863, at a crowded train station in New Jersey, a young man in a dark coat lost his footing on a narrow platform and fell toward an approaching train. Crowds around him watched. Nobody moved. Then a stranger in a top hat dove forward, grabbed him by the collar, and hauled him back from the edge. The stranger was Edwin Booth, the most celebrated actor in America. The young man he saved was Robert Todd Lincoln, the oldest son of President Abraham Lincoln. A Booth had saved a Lincoln. 2 years later, that actor, Edwin Booth's brother, John Wilkes Booth, would step into a theater box at Ford's Theater and shoot Abraham Lincoln dead. One Booth, one Lincoln, 2 moments. The same family woven into the same story from opposite sides of the page. History doesn't usually let coincidences carry that much weight. It let this one, and then the day that refused to be ordinary. July 4th, 1826, the 50th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. In Quincy, Massachusetts, 90-year-old John Adams lay in bed, his heart failing. In Monticello, Virginia, 83-year-old Thomas Jefferson lay in bed as well. They had been rivals for decades, co-signers of the same proclamation, founders of 2 opposed political visions. They had not said a kind word to each other in years. On the afternoon of the 4th, Jefferson died first at 1 o'clock. Doctors in Quincy watched the clock and waited. Adams, drifting in and out of consciousness, mumbled words the attendants had to lean in to catch. "Thomas Jefferson survives," he whispered. The old man was wrong. Jefferson had been dead for 5 hours. Adams slipped away within hours of that mistaken whisper. 2 old men, lifelong rivals, both signing the same founding document 50 years earlier, both dying on the exact same afternoon. Asked what day they had hoped to live long enough to see, both would have said, "This one." Now jump back 14 years before the Titanic ever sank, to an empty apartment in 1898. A former sailor named Morgan Robertson sat down to write a novella he titled Futility. In it, a massive ocean liner called the Titan, unsinkable, the pride of the merchant fleet, was crossing the North Atlantic in April. On its maiden voyage at full speed, it struck an iceberg and went down. Most passengers died because there weren't nearly enough lifeboats. The ship in the book was almost exactly the same length as the Titanic. Its tonnage was nearly identical. Its name was almost the same. The cause of the sinking was identical. The detail that filled the world's newspapers after the Titanic went down in 1912, too few lifeboats had already been written into the book 14 years earlier. Robertson lived in an obscure sailor's boarding house when he wrote it. He had no connection to anyone who would design the Titanic. He had read no classified blueprints. So what happened? In November 1835, a comet blazed across the night sky. It was the famous Halley's Comet, returning on its 76-year loop around the sun. 2 weeks later, on the 30th of that month, a baby was born in a small town in Missouri. The family named him Samuel Clemens. The world would come to know him as Mark Twain. He grew up, he traveled, he wrote the books that would define American literature, and he grew old. As he approached 75, the comet was approaching again. In 1909, Twain told a friend, "I came in with Halley's Comet. It is coming again, and I expect to go out with it." The next year, April 21st, 1910, Mark Twain died. The comet had passed its closest point to the sun one day earlier. He had arrived on its coattails. He had left on its coattails. What are the chances? Now your brain wants to whisper a number, 1,000,000 to 1, billion to 1, and that whisper feels entirely reasonable. So let's do the math together. Gather any 23 strangers into any ordinary room, a coffee shop, a subway car, a wedding reception. What is the probability that at least 2 of them will share the exact same birthday? You assume something tiny. You assume the answer is close to 0, but it isn't. It is just over 50%. Cut the room down to 75 people and the odds jump to 99.9%. The classic birthday problem, formalized by mathematicians throughout the 20th century, isn't a paradox of truth. It is a paradox of human intuition. We are extraordinarily bad at intuitively estimating combinatorial probability. We wildly underestimate how often unlikely things must happen once the sample size gets large. 23 people is not, in fact, a very small number. Once you start multiplying all the possible interactions, every day in the calendar, every pair of faces in the crowd, the unlikely begins to look almost certain. In 1989, the statisticians Percy Diakonis and Frederick Mosteller published a paper that gave this feeling a name. They called it the law of truly large numbers. The principle is simple. With a large enough sample, any outrageous thing is likely to happen. Not possible. Likely. How many redwood trees are there on Earth? Hundreds of millions. How many leaves on a single tree? Hundreds of millions more. So, how many leaves in total are floating through the world's forests? The number is so vast, so far beyond the grasp of human intuition, that events of astonishing rarity become statistical certainties. A leaf shaped exactly like a human face is a near impossibility in any given tree. But across every tree on Earth, a staggering number of face-shaped leaves must exist. You just have to find one. You just have to look. Humans in particular are very good at looking. In 1958, a Swiss psychiatrist named Klaus Conrad coined a word for the human habit of seeing meaning inside chaos: apophenia. The Swiss psychologist Peter Brugger spent decades studying it. He found that people who score high on tests for apophenia are not broken people, not delusional, not foolish. They are pattern seekers. Their brains are doing exactly what brains evolved to do. Your ancestors did not survive the African savanna by calmly accepting a leaf as a leaf. They survived by assuming the rustling in the grass might be a lion. They survived by detecting a pattern, by connecting 2 events, by predicting. That hypersensitive pattern recognition system, The very same one that kept your species alive for 200,000 years is the one now keeping you awake at 2 in the morning because you dreamed about a childhood friend and they texted you the next morning. Your brain is not telling you that the universe is wired. Your brain is telling you that you evolved to find wires where none exist. The two ideas feel identical from the inside. They are not identical from the outside. So next time someone thinks of you and you feel a small shiver and your hand reaches for the phone, remember what is happening. A coincidence has arrived, and your brain has done exactly what it was trained to do across 200,000 years of survival on a planet of 8 billion people and an ocean of leaves and an evening sky full of returning comets. It has spotted a pattern. It has told you it means something. And it has done this because in another era, the rustle in the grass was sometimes, in fact, a lion. The shiver is real. The universe is not reaching out. Your brain is reaching in.